So I want to do a little bit of a different kind of speakdom here and kind of try to open some people's eyes, some of my life experiences, and maybe put some inspiration with some people. And I want to talk about millionaires, people who are actual millionaires. So when I worked, here's a little bit of backstory about me. So around 2006 or so, I worked for the cable company here where I live, and I was a field networking engineer. So part of my duties were to go out to businesses and to residential homes, apartments and whatnot, and help them with their network, whether it be wireless or wired or just internet support or, just kind of helping them out with whatever they needed when it came to the internet. That was my job. And because of that, they would send me all over the county. And one of the things that really opened my eyes, to how people live. And I learned, it was a good job. I learned so much more about where I live and different parts of my county. And a lot of times they would send me to these really, really rich folks' homes. I remember there was one dude who, they sent me out to the northeast of the county, and this guy lived like in the middle of nowhere, but he was loaded. His house was so big. I remember he wanted me to hook up a wireless router in the home. The problem is that where he had his modem installed was literally across the house from where his other computer was at, the wireless one, and the issue was the house was so big it just wouldn't reach. It was so big. And I got to know a lot of people who were legitimate millionaires, business owners, people who play with stocks and whatnot. And there's a lot of myths about millionaires, and there's a lot of things about millionaires that is true. Now, Chris Hogan did a really great book called Everyday Millionaires, where he talks about regular people like you and me who eventually become millionaires through investing, through being smart with their money, income. You don't just become a millionaire by inheriting it. You can do it. Like anybody can do it if they have the right breaks in life. Not everybody can do it, but you know what I mean. People can do it, but they don't know how. A lot of it has to do with saving your money young, compound interest, etc. So that's a good book there to check out from Chris Hogan. And one thing I want to start off with when it comes to the word millionaire is being a millionaire does not mean that you have $1 million in cash. Now, I'm not a millionaire, obviously. I am not one right now. Maybe someday. Fingers crossed, but I'm not one right now. But millionaires don't necessarily have to have $1 million in cash. It's more so $1 million in what you actually own. A lot of really wealthy business owners and people who do business, that's the same thing, isn't it? A lot of them don't even have that much actual cash on hand, what we call liquid funds. A lot of that is tied up in investments and real estate and things like that, which is not liquid. Now, it can, of course, be liquidated. You can sell your assets and get money out of it, but it's not actual liquid cash you can just spend like in one day. It usually takes 24, 48 hours, sometimes more, take the money out of the investment, sell the stock or whatever. Just depends. It depends on what we're talking about here and where the money's at. So if you own a house that costs $1 million, and it could be sold for equity, it could be whatever. You can do a lot of things with it. But if you have a house that's worth $1 million, even if you only make $50,000 a year, you technically count as a millionaire. Now, one thing I learned about these guys is a lot of them were old guys. A lot of them were kind of corny, but a lot of them were really inspiring people because they would always pick the morning appointments. They'd be the first ones I'd go see. They always had so much energy. Like, you would think that if you were rich like that, you wouldn't work that hard. You would just be like, whatever, I'm rich, I'm good. And just so people know, being a millionaire, like having 1 million minimum, does not mean you have a butler and all. That's a bunch of BS. So you got to be not a multi-millionaire to have those kind of things. Regular millionaires, like everyday millionaires, like Chris Hogan says, they don't really have it. But these dudes had so much energy. And it's crazy that I'm seeing these guys, they're in their 50s and 60s, and they look less tired than some of my friends who were in their 20s. I mean, it was absurd. And it's that whole, like, when you're happy, because a lot of them were genuinely happy, you do tend to look at life differently, but also the thing is, a lot of these guys were self-employed or they were business owners, like I said, which usually is the same thing. But when you have that kind of freedom, your life is just a lot better. Now, obviously, there are certain businesses where you don't have that kind of freedom. Sometimes you have to go to work because it's your business. If you own a restaurant, for example, your hours are from 8 to 5. You better be there from 8 to 5 because you own the thing. Obviously, as you get older and you hire more help, you don't have to be there every day. But at first, you probably do. And these guys just had so much energy. But it's still, there's a certain charm there's a certain kind of feeling in owning a business for yourself, right? Like, you could work for somebody else, but if you're the owner, yes, there's a lot of responsibility, and with that, a lot of anxiety, but there's also a lot of freedom. Like, you just feel good. You wake up and you know that it's yours and you have control over it. And it's a nice feeling. But these guys were so like nice and kind and generous. I mean, one of them gave me a wine bottle. I don't even drink, dude. One of them just gave me a wine bottle. And I hate this idea that some people have. Usually it's broke people, that rich folks are like pricks and that poor people are generous. That's like the opposite. I know more miserable poor people than I do freaking miserable rich people. Now, obviously, environment is part of that, but it's still one of those things where it's a myth. It's a complete myth. Every one of them was so giving and so smart and so happy. And obviously, if you have a lot of money, you're going to be happy. But money does not mean that you're happy. The money does not equate to happiness, but money does make you feel more secure. Like if you have money, you're able to not have so much concerns over, oh my God, I got to make ends meet. Oh my God, am I going to be able to afford going to the doctor? There's benefits to it, but these guys, I don't think it has anything to do with the money. I think it has to do with the fact that these guys felt so free. You know what I mean? They really felt so free. And it's a huge myth that the only way to become a millionaire is if you're some kind of stock genius or if you're some kind of, some kind of brilliant investor, if you inherit the money or if you happen to get lucky. Luck is part of it. I mean, I'm not going to BS you, but in talking to these guys and in reading up on other millionaires, it really is something where a lot of it just involves being very practical. Millionaires like to use coupons. Millionaires like to save money. They go for 2-for-1 deals. They actually save more money than the average poor person who throws away their coupons. Hey, let's go get this, 2-for-1 special at Boston Market. That's kind of the mentality they have because they value money a little bit more. Now, that being said, what is, a big myth is this whole thing where you have to be a genius no, you don't. You really don't have to be. If you start investing young, if you start investing in your 20s, you don't even have to invest that much. Put like $100 or maybe even, I'm going to say just to be safe, $100 a month in an investment account. And I don't mean like an investment account like a money market. You ain't going to get nothing out of that. But like in a Roth IRA, and you let it build up from when you're young, you keep adding $100 only $100. Now, the maximum you can add is $6,000 a year. That number goes up every year, or not every year, every few years. But for a Roth IRA, and I'm not going to go into the whole thing now, just Google it, look up some more information on it. I'm not going to give you a financial lesson here, but there's tons of videos and there's tons of books out there about this, but I'm going to give you kind of why it matters. With a Roth IRA, when you retire at age 59 and a half, well, you might not retire at that age, but you could. You get that money back with compound interest and no taxes. You pay no taxes on it. Now, if you start investing in good growth stock mutual funds, or, I invest in tech companies. I'll tell you that. I'll share that with you. I invest in Amazon and different people. And what happens is the interest grows on those companies, with inflation and with other things, the success of the company. Then you have compounding interest, and it grows and grows and grows. You start doing it when you're 20. By the time you're 59, you could be a millionaire. I mean, you could legitimately be a millionaire because you get that money. And like I said, you get that money out, and it's tax-free with a Roth IRA. Now, what if you don't get a million? What if you get $800,000? That's great, $800,000. It's better than having to count on Social Security, which may not be there for you. You know what I mean? Social Security is very much something that's not something you want to count on, and you don't want to be one of those guys who's 70 years old, working still, busting your back, barely being able to move because you have to. So it's always a good idea to invest young, and it sucks that I actually waited to invest until I was in my 30s, which is, I didn't know. I didn't know any better, so I'm making this video now to young people out there. Invest in retirement, invest in Roth IRAs. Later on, you can get into bridge accounts and things like that. Also, 401ks are good if you have that option. But it's important to do that when you're young because it will pay off. It will pay off. Is it risky? There's always a form of risk there, but if you invest in good mutual funds that have a proven track record of success, and they are out there because I invest in them, you absolutely can succeed. You absolutely can, and you never want to invest too much, but if the maximum is $6,000 a year with the Roth IRAs, if you can manage that, if you can manage to give them 6K a year, it will grow tremendous amounts of dividends, tremendous amounts of compound interest. By the time you retire, just think about that. 6,000 plus 6,000 plus 6,000 for 30 years of your life, plus compound interest. I mean, you don't have to worry about being that guy. You don't have to worry about being that guy. And there's other forms of investment too. It's just that I think that retirement is something that people never look into. And wouldn't it be sweet? Because, we're always busy with our lives. I didn't even think about retirement until I was in my 30s. I didn't even care. But think about it. Like, when you get older, wouldn't it be sweet at 59, which is not even that old, to get a big chunk of change from your investments and not have to worry about bills, working? Your mortgage should theoretically be paid off by then. If not, that's okay, but you'll at least have money, and you don't have to worry about, just being this, being this guy who's just being screwed over by Social Security. You don't want to be that guy. You know what I'm saying? And it's a benefit, because think about it. You retire on, let's say, 800 grand. Forget a million, 800 grand. Dude, you can take vacations. You can do so many things. So much more freedom. And I remember my father did not do this. He retired on Social Security, and he was making about, I believe it was like $800 a month from Social Security. So he had to work under the table to make more money and work a part-time. And it was just, it's BS, bro, because who can live on $800 a month? I mean, you'd have to live miserably. You would live miserably under that amount of money. You'd have to, either not eat well, or you would have to live with roommates. And who wants to do that when you're old? Obviously, if you're married and whatnot, it's different. When my dad retired, my mom had already passed away, so it was he didn't live with anybody. It was just him, and I lived with him for a while, but it just wasn't enough. And I want people to really be cognizant of that. To remember, if you're young, start investing for retirement as early as you can. I'm not saying you gotta throw in a lot. If you throw in more now, it's actually better if you throw in more now than later in life, because now the compound interest will build up faster because of how much more time you have. You start investing at 20 as opposed to at 30, you have 10 more years of compound interest. I did not take advantage of this. You guys can. Again, I'm not going to give people stock tips. I'm not a financial advisor, but I am good with finances because, like I've said before, I was homeless, and because of that I got PTSD, and I never want to be homeless again, so I really dig into this kind of stuff, and I really think it's important to do that. Of course, if you're broke and you need money, you can't. But I mean, if you have extra money on the side, instead of spending it on some stupid BS, some video game or something, consider putting it into retirement, because at some point in your life, you may want to get everything. And you never want to buy things just to be, to catch up with your neighbor. I might do a whole video on that. You don't want to ever be that guy. You want to be smarter than other people. You want to be more practical, and you want to be a better planner. And that, I think, works by investing young. So that is my Speakdom for Speakdom Saturday. Thank you again so much for watching, and I hope that I've impacted you in some way and made you think a little bit. Look up some more info on Roth IRAs, but that's what I invest in, and it works for me. Thank you, and I'll talk to you very soon.